Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller film named Oddity. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a puppet suddenly raising its head, startling the sexy woman. When she looked closer, it had returned to its original state. Curiosity drove the waiting woman to inspect it. She found 5 holes in its skull, containing a lock of hair, 2 photographs, a tooth, and a vial of unknown liquid. Right at that moment, a psychic, noticing her actions, shouted angrily for her to return the items to their original places, warning that the puppet carried a most malicious curse. But the secrets remain unknown for why the woman kept such cursed items in her home and why strange deaths kept occurring in this century-old house. The scene flashes back a little bit earlier to an old house in a remote countryside. The woman named Danny was left alone in the large, eerie house since her doctor husband was working late again that night. She had planned to invite her twin sister over, but the call went to voicemail. Her sister was likely busy with work. As a full-time housewife, Danny was accustomed to her solitude. As night fell, she locked the doors and windows as usual and prepared to rest in her tent. Suddenly, she heard a noise at the door lock, as though someone was trying to open it. Looking through the side window, she was startled by a pair of eerie eyes belonging to a one-eyed man she had never seen before. He appeared panicked and urged her to open the door. Sensing danger, Danny lied, saying her husband would be home soon. To her shock, the man replied that Dr. Ted was working late that night. How did he know? Goosebumps rose on her skin as she threatened to call the police. Unexpectedly, the one-eyed man grew more agitated, insisting he had just seen someone sneak into her house and that she was in great danger. His lack of fear about the police made Danny chill her spine and butt. She told him her phone was in the car, but the man offered to come inside, still claiming someone was there. Danny cautiously glanced into the dark corners of the house and heard faint noises. Hesitantly, she reached for the door lock. That night, Danny was brutally murdered. The prime suspect, the one-eyed man, was not jailed, but sent back to a mental hospital. It turned out he was a psychiatric patient who had killed his own mother during a violent episode. Not long after, he too was killed under mysterious circumstances, his head crushed as if by an immense force. A local bald henchman arrived at the scene and picked up the one-eyed man's fake eye from the blood-soaked ground. Dr. Ted later visited Bernie, Danny's blind twin sister, who had developed psychic abilities after losing her sight due to a tumor. Bernie ran an antique shop filled with items belonging to the deceased. Simply touching an item would reveal flashes of its owner's life and death. For instance, she described a dark spirit whose former owner, a lonely and tormented waiter, had died after being pushed down the stairs by a drunken customer. His resentment turned him into a bloodthirsty spirit. Anyone ringing his bell would invoke his vengeance. Dr. Ted scoffed at such tales, dismissing them as superstition. A staunch atheist and educated professional, he saw Bernie as a charlatan. He insisted on ringing the bell to debunk her claims, but was stopped by Bernie, who warned him to respect the unknown. Dr. Ted shifted the conversation to serious matters. A week ago, the bald henchman had also died under strange circumstances. Among his belongings was the one-eyed man's fake eye. Bernie, eager to uncover the truth about her sister's murder, carefully wrapped the eye for further investigation. A week later, on the anniversary of Danny's death, Bernie planned to visit Dr. Ted. The doctor, however, awkwardly declined, explaining that he had been living with his girlfriend, Yana, for a year and it would be inconvenient to host Bernie. The blind woman's smile froze as she watched him leave. Heartbroken, she replayed her sister's final voicemail repeatedly on the way home, berating herself for missing her last call. Despite his sister-in-law's deep grief, Dr. Ted had quickly moved on, refusing even to honor Danny's memory. Alone, Bernie gently touched the fake eye and saw fragmented images. The true killer was not the one-eyed man, but a masked figure. Overcome with anguish, she collapsed onto a wooden chest. Inside, something reacted to her intense emotions, shaking violently. Meanwhile, Yana, an atheist like Dr. Ted, had moved into Danny's house shortly after her death, using her belongings without hesitation. Retribution came swiftly. While playing with Danny's camera, Yana captured a shadowy figure. The previous night, she encountered Danny's ghost. Dr. Ted dismissed Yana's fears, attributing them to paranoia, and warned her against indulging in superstitions like Bernie. Yana pointed to a wooden chest delivered earlier by Bernie, containing a terrifying puppet. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Bernie, reminding Dr. Ted of their plans to honor Danny's memory. The two exchanged uncomfortable glances, but reluctantly allowed Bernie to stay the night. Later, Dr. Ted left hurriedly for another late shift. Yana, unwilling to stay alone with Bernie, tried to leave but couldn't find her car keys. Left with no choice, she sat down for a tense dinner with her guest. Their conversation revealed that Yana and Dr. Ted had been close friends for 2 years, but only became romantically involved after Danny's death. Bernie's expression turned subtle. She shared a story about a widow who adored her late husband, only to learn through Bernie's psychic abilities that he had been a chronic adulterer with enough mistresses to form a football team. Yana, feeling the implied accusation, grew uneasy, but what Bernie said next made her outright panic. Bernie, bound by blood ties, couldn't use her sister's belongings to communicate with the spirit world. However, through the false eye of the one-eyed man, she uncovered the truth. Her sister had not opened the door that night. She was brutally murdered with a hammer by the masked man hiding inside the house. The one-eyed man was not lying. He had indeed come with good intentions to save her. Yana found it hard to believe. She had heard that the one-eyed man was a raving lunatic who had killed his own mother before being institutionalized. Bernie continued, revealing that the one-eyed man had suffered abuse at the hands of his mother, who had gouged out his eye. His act of killing her was an accident born of desperation, and he had been deeply remorseful ever since. He was a kind-hearted person at his core. If that was the case, who was the true murderer? Bernie calmly declared that the killer had already been identified. Meanwhile, Dr. Ted was at the hospital playing chess with an orderly. The orderly, who had been deeply traumatized by abuse at a boys' school, had suffered from severe mental illness in the past, but was now deemed recovered and worked under Dr. Ted. As they chatted, Dr. Ted received a call from Yana, who relayed everything Bernie had said. Yana was convinced that Bernie was delusional, especially since she claimed the real killer was the orderly. Yana urged Dr. Ted to return home immediately. After hanging up, Yana glanced downstairs to see Bernie sound asleep. Yet the wooden doll in the living room suddenly tilted its head, startling Yana so much that she dropped her phone, smashing it to pieces. Looking again, the doll had returned to its original position. Curiosity overcame her, and she decided to check the doll for hidden mechanisms. She discovered tufts of hair, twin photographs, a tooth, and a vial of red liquid inside its skull's 5 small holes. Bernie suddenly screamed in a chicken voice, startling Yana, who hurried back to her room. Bernie, on the other hand, stared intently at the doll, mimicking its exact posture. Yana had intended to sleep through the night, but nature's call forced her to the bathroom. The lights suddenly went out and she rushed out, suspecting Bernie of tampering with the switch. But Bernie sat far away, far too distant to have done anything unless she could teleport. Brushing it off, Yana picked up Danny's camera and watched a sweet video of Danny and Dr. Ted. The thought of her affair's success gave her a smug satisfaction, but suddenly, a ghostly face appeared on the screen. The house lights flickered, and the apparition seemed unmistakably real. Panicked, Yana rushed to wake Bernie but got no response. The wooden box in the room trembled, and inside, Yana found her car keys. As she fled the house, all the lights went out. In the darkness, the ghostly face of Danny appeared. Terrified, Yana drove away, heart pounding, fearful that Danny's ghost would seek revenge. Back at the house, Dr. Ted returned and found Bernie on the second floor. Bernie revealed that her sister's spirit had already scared Yana away, as Yana wasn't directly involved in the crime. Dr. Ted insisted the case was closed. The one-eyed man had met a grim fate, which he deemed retribution. He urged Bernie to let it go. But Bernie confessed she felt cursed herself. She had killed a kind soul who had tried to save her sister. Dr. Ted dismissed the idea, claiming Bernie couldn't have infiltrated a psychiatric hospital to crush the one-eyed man's head. What's more, he revealed that the orderly couldn't be the killer since he didn't even know Danny. Bernie faced him, stating that she saw everything. The orderly was sent by him, and his motive lies in this ring. Dr. Ted had been having an affair with Yana for a year. Dissatisfied with his marriage and reluctant to divide assets in a divorce, he decided his wife had to die. Believing Danny would fight a divorce or expose his affair, he schemed to have her killed. The hospital orderly was thrilled at the task, deciding to assault Danny first since she was doomed anyway. Dr. Ted had firmly objected, insisting she be spared that indignity, but the plan had been overheard by the one-eyed man. Bernie sobbed as she recounted the story, declaring she wanted Dr. Ted in prison but demanded the orderly's life as retribution for killing her sister. Dr. Ted denied everything, suggesting they call the police to reinvestigate and prove his innocence. However, instead of contacting the authorities, he activated a secret basement door. The blind Bernie, following the ringing of Dr. Ted's phone, fell into the basement and was critically injured. As Bernie lay dying, she used her own blood to curse him. The wooden doll in the living room vanished, and Bernie's soul possessed it. Her last breath coincided with her sister's spirit appearing to guide her away. The wounded orderly returned to the psychiatric hospital, where Dr. Ted ensured his silence by declaring him mentally unstable. He was scared and asked to see the priest, wanting to confess everything to the priest. To seal his lips further, Dr. Ted placed him in a cell with a notorious cannibalistic patient. Back home, Dr. Ted found a small package containing a sinister bell from Bernie. Unwavering in his atheism, Dr. Ted confidently rang the bell, seeing no immediate effects. Smirking, he failed to notice the vengeful spirit lurking behind him, ready to claim its due. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.